Hey everybody, welcome to the We Ship It podcast. Today we are talking The Hunger Games, and we have a special guest who we will reveal after the break.
Yeah, so we will mainly be talking about Peeta and Katniss, the not real turned real lovers from Suzanne Collins' post-apocalyptic tale. Do we ship it? Listen to find out. Hey everybody, I'm Devin.
And I'm Steph.
And welcome to the We Ship It podcast. Today we are diving in to talk about The Hunger Games and its main lovebirds, Katniss and Peeta. Just a warning, as with each episode, we always want to start off with a spoiler alert. In case you haven't finished the series, we are going to be talking about books 1, 2, and 3. So just be mindful if you haven't read them of possible spoilers. The Hunger Games is a post-apocalyptic tale of 12 districts and the aftermath of a revolutionary war, which results in Panem, a dystopian society where each district provides a need or product of the capital. Every year, 2 people are chosen to represent their district in a battle to the death. It's like a deadly Olympic Games. And eventually, people grow tired of this. In the 3rd book, a revolution begins, and as we know, Katniss Everdeen is the figurehead. She and Peeta fall into a sort of fake love in the 1st book, surviving the struggle of the Hunger Games together. And then they grow into a sort of true love over time, resulting in Katniss having to save him from the hands of the Capitol. These two go through so many twists and turns, and we are excited to talk more about whether or not we ship it.
Yes, so we know that this couple is a favorite of many, but it also sparks some debate, and it's a not so favorite of a lot of people too. So we have Team Peeta, we have Team Gale, and we have Team Nobody as well, where Katniss is concerned. So we really wanted to dive into this with a guest reader. So for this episode, I want to introduce you to one of my great friends, Cahlia Walton. Say hi, Cahlia.
Hello.
Yay. Yay.
Cahlia.
Cahlia, yes, Devin, thank you for singing that. But so Cahlia and I went to school together, and we both loved reading. During our time in college, the Hunger Games movies were coming out, so naturally we, the resident nerds, had to go to the premieres. I remember we once met, what was her name?
Oh yeah, Effie Trinket.
You did?
I think it was some chick that was like cosplaying as her, and
Yes.
I still have that picture of us and the person like as Effie Trinket as like Steph's caller ID on my phone.
So, of course, when I was thinking of who to invite to this episode, of course it was the person I met Effie Trinket with, Cahlia. So she came to mind first, and we're hoping to invite some more guest readers as well. So if anyone is interested or has a particular couple that they want to talk about, please feel free to join us. So thank you for joining, Cahlia.
You're welcome. I'm the first,
And-
therefore the best.
Yes, naturally. First is best. That's what they say.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, Devin, why don't you give us our first question?
Yeah. All right, so how does The Hunger Games play a role in creating Peeta and Katniss's relationship?
Well, so as far as like, it plays the entire role, right? It allows Katniss to notice Peeta at all. I don't know if they ever would have come together on like otherwise, honestly. The two of them saw each other kind of when they were in District 12, but this was really the thing that brought them together. And it also like, it just forced them together. I mean, they had to do it to survive. So, they would kiss each other and all that stuff throughout the 1st book, mainly because they wanted to get sponsors and survive. So it wasn't the most romantic thing in the 1st book. But that becomes clear at the end of the 1st book when they're really not in love, or at least like Katniss doesn't think so. So that's a whole drama too. But I don't know. Cahlia, what do you think?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I feel like there wouldn't be a Katniss and Peeta without the Hunger Games. Now, granted, I've read a lot of Hunger Games fan fiction.
Oh, here we go.
I've definitely read different ways where they could have interacted without the Hunger Games, but like then the book isn't the Hunger Games. Then it's just fan fiction that I end up reading at 3 a.m. when I'm sad.
Don't we all?
So, yeah, there really wouldn't be. They were like neighbors, or not even neighbors because they lived in different parts of District 12. They were like acquaintances, like that one person that like sits 3 rows to the left of you in math class, and you're just like, oh yeah,
I remember that guy.
Well, to Katniss, that's who Peeta was. Besides the whole boy of the bread thing,
Right.
She didn't have any sort of relationship with him. He was just literally the boy with the bread. Now, Peeta was off doing his other thing, imagining their marriage in their mind or whatever. We don't have the books from his point of view.
Do you think he really had a crush on her before the Hunger Games? You don't think that was a stunt at all? Like, you think he really did have a crush on her?
I don't think so, just because I'm a romantic and I want it to be cute. But I also think you have to take into account what a crush is. Like, you can have a crush on someone, but like a crush is just like, oh, that person. He might have played it up
for someone.
Yeah, it's not any sort of actual relationship. It's a crush, and he might have played it up in his mind or whatever, and this, that, and the other thing. And maybe he realized, because he's a savvy guy, he realized that he could have used it to his advantage. But I actually think he had a crush on her. But also, when you're a teenager as well, crushes take up a really big part of your mind.
That's true.
Yeah,
could have been over dramatized.
It could have definitely been over dramatized in his own mind, because he's like a 16-year-old boy.
Yep. Poor little Peeta. I just want to give him a little hug. But we'll talk more about poor little Peeta as we go on.
Absolutely.
So the second question we have, let's talk Gale. Would they have been a better match, Gale and Katniss? I don't know if one of you wants to take that one on. But
Let's just face the truth. Gale was Katniss's future if Prim was not chosen to be the tribute. That's my mind. I feel like she had some faint stirrings for Gale, but they never developed into anything because Katniss primarily focused on her family and making sure they survived. Mm-hmm. And I think she loves Gale, but throughout the course of the trilogy, I don't think it's romantic love, but more of an admiration or appreciation, like almost familial kind of love for him. Mm-hmm. It never gets that spark to ignite into something more, because of her being thrown into the games. So that's my, if the games didn't exist and if Prim wasn't chosen, I think she might have ended up with him, not because she was in love with him, but because she just felt like that was the right thing to do.
Sure. Cahlia, what do you think?
I basically agree. I think, just to short tangent, I liked their relationship platonically, because I feel like, especially in young adult novels, which The Hunger Game is, there's always a lack of platonic guy and girl friendships that I think they need to re-up on. My childhood best friend growing up was a guy, and the amount of people that are like, oh my god, you guys are gonna get up together, and I was like, that's disgusting. So I feel like they could have made that with Katniss and Gale just a very close platonic friendship bond, instead of having to throw the whole, of course Gale likes her now, we have to make it a love triangle type thing. But I also agree with Devin in the fact that if the Hunger Games didn't happen, she probably would have ended up with Gale out of necessity. I feel like necessity is a really harsh word. Expectation, I feel like, might be better.
Yeah, I think expectation would be a better choice. Yeah.
And I don't know if it would have ever been because she truly loved him and chose him, more of the oh, he's here. I don't hate him, so
no, I don't hate him either. He's a nice guy.
I don't hate him either. Yeah, and he also takes care of her family when she's gone, which is really important.
Yeah, he really steps up in those regards.
He does. But here's the quote that I think really sums it up, because yes, you're right. The two of them would have ended up together, I think, if the Hunger Games never happened. But if you look at their personalities, I don't think they were right for each other. Katniss is thinking to herself in Mockingjay, quote, that what I need to survive is not Gale's fire, kindled with rage and hatred. I have plenty of fire myself. What I need is the dandelion in the spring, the bright yellow that means rebirth instead of destruction, the promise that life can go on no matter how bad our losses, that it can be good again, and only Peeta can give me that. And I think that is what really, we'll talk about whether or not her and Peeta are truly in love. Yeah, it's in Mockingjay. Yeah. So
no, I love that.
We'll talk about whether or not they're truly in love, but I think what she needed after all the trauma, and just her own personality, I think what she needed to really
some
feel
tranquility
was
from
Peeta.
Some peace
and I also
Peeta.
think they were too much alike, her Katniss and Gale, in the aspect where it's good to definitely have some things in common with someone you're obviously in a relationship or married to, but there's also just an interestingness factor in having differences and exploring someone else's interests that you might not have been, or exploring something that you might not have ever done because of this thing. So if it was just Katniss and Gale being angry at the world together, like, that gets boring after a while.
All right, next question then, moving on. What obstacles prevent them, or do they encounter, and how do they overcome them?
I mean, like,
there are lots of obstacles.
The whole last book. The
like,
entirety of Mockingjay.
And so we have a specific question about the terrible ending that we will talk about. But so at least I can point out obstacles that both come from the Hunger Games and come from like the post-apocalyptic world they live in. And I can also like talk about obstacles that like they face as a couple. I think most of their obstacles though come from the Capitol and President Snow or whatever.
Yeah,
so
they're definitely more outside sources that cause them issues than inside sources.
Yeah, like at the end. So, well, although this one kind of bugs me. At the end when like she finally tells Peeta, "Oh, it was all an act." And he's like, "What?"
You mean at the end of the first book?
At the end of the first book,
yeah.
Yes. It's one of the most upsetting things to me because the poor kid,
like,
he should have known the whole time.
Don't do this to me.
The whole time he should have known that, like, you know, she's
all
not
for the
really
game.
in love with you. And I don't know.
And that's why I thought, going back to like the first question, that's why I think he actually had a crush on her.
Mm-hmm.
Because he really thought.
Yeah, because if it was all
agree.
of an act for him, he would probably assume that it was all of an act for her too. But he was like just really feeling his feelings.
I know, and that's like a huge obstacle for them, but they eventually overcome it because Peter, oh my God. Peeta's so much better at getting over the obstacles than Katniss is. I mean, consider the way that she handles first meeting him in the third book, like when he forgets who she is. Like she just does not know how to handle it.
She's like, well, that's it. It's over.
Yeah.
Walks
So
into
I'm like,
incoming traffic.
yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, like if you love this guy, like get over it. But that's a whole
well, I don't know if this even goes with the question or what I'm saying. I'm on a tangent now. But I also think like they've both dealt with like trauma in their lives, and Peeta's is alluded to a lot. It's not explicitly said, but like I personally believe his mother abused him, and so does the rest of the fan fiction world.
Oh yeah,
so
I definitely agree.
We're gonna make that canon just for the sake of this. So I think that's kind of the thing where like we're like obstacles and how they dealt with obstacles. We're like, okay, Katniss's dad died, and her mom went into like her coma thing,
right,
or whatever.
Her depression,
her depression. Yeah, that's a lot better because she wasn't actually in a coma. So Katniss, how she dealt with that trauma was kind of like shoving it to the side. Her dad was dead. Her mom wasn't doing anything, so she had to help her and her sister survive.
Right. No, I agree with your original statement about like they are still acting as pawns even after the game. They have to now traverse the new territory and still act as a couple. They still have to navigate their new lives, but they're still trying to deal with being friends at the same time. It's just like it's really complicated for them.
I just feel like also like, yeah, they have to traverse being friends. They have to traverse like putting on an act, but they also have to deal with the PTSD from being in the Murder Olympics. Like that's a whole other level.
Okay, thank you for expressing that. But the thing for me that gets me, things are moving so quickly in the world around them and in their relationship because they have to force it, that the two of them hardly overcome their struggles, their personal struggles. They hardly overcome the struggles around them. They just have to keep moving to survive. So when things eventually do die down, I don't think they know how to handle it, even if Peeta didn't even if he didn't lose his mind.
Well, I also think, kind of going back to the other point where like Katniss was really used to just powering through her struggles, but like Peeta, if we do say that his mom abused him, like he lived with his abuser, so that's a whole different sort of trying to figure out your struggles through, so that's a whole different way for him to try and navigate things.
Okay, we're moving on because
Next
we have more questions. What characteristics of each character make them fall in love?
So I'll break it into first one and then the other. For Peeta, he's such a caretaker, and he's a perfect antidote to Katniss's natural and warranted pessimism and gloom. He is completely devoted to Katniss through thick and thin, and he maintains his sunny disposition despite all the sufferings that we talked about, we already mentioned. It is his light that Katniss is so attracted to, and he brings her tormented life comfort. and she accepts it wholeheartedly. Like, she doesn't necessarily give into it right away, but eventually she kind of just like, I have this desire to need him now, specifically with the nightmares and such that she encounters. For Katniss, I think Peeta sees how big Katniss's heart is and admires her strength. It is not fame or glory or social status that drives Katniss. It is love and trying to give those she loves a chance at life. Peeta falls for her strength, power, and her beauty.
Yep.
So I think he's just like stunned by her.
He is. He really is.
I do want to say, and I do want to bring up kind of like, I agree with everything Devin said, but I do want to say when we get to like their first encounters, their first meetings with each other, I think it's a lot more shallow.
Yep.
I think 5-year-old Peeta's like, that girl's cute and sings nice. No, but like,
you're not wrong.
Yeah,
you're not wrong.
Then like, as they get older, obviously it evolves into more.
Yeah,
it
definitely.
And it's the same thing with where like he goes from being like, that girl's cute and sings nice to like, oh, she's like very loving of her family, like, and something I can.
There's a lot more to her than just her pretty face.
She's so deep. She has a killer French braid. Like, it's so much. There's so much more to that as they go through the Hunger Games and everything together, and how it is kind of going back to that Dandelion quote where like he brings her down because she's always on like 10, like rage and hardcore survival mode, and he brings her down to a level where she can literally just like stop and smell the flowers. So like the dandelions. So I think that's one thing, and I also think on Katniss' side, or did I just say Katniss' side? I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. But I think another thing is for Katniss, she kind of, when you really think about it, she kind of already had him on a pedestal as the boy with the bread. And then when she got to know him as a person, she kind of saw the same, I think they saw the same things in each other that they liked, like the big hearts, like the caring for others, because like he didn't have to purposely burn that bread because he was putting himself actually in danger by doing that.
Yeah.
But he did.
I love it. I love
it.
Yeah,
I think they were both on.
So
I think
cool.
For each other, they were both on pedestals in some regards. But then they finally saw through their pedestals and were able to understand each other.
Okay, next question.
Yeah. So, what are your favorite and not so favorite ship moments?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to go with not so favorite first because it's easiest. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I freaking hate when Peeta runs into Katniss's room when she has like night terrors.
You hate that?
It's like,
Really?
okay, listen to why I hate this, because it's cute, okay, for the fan fiction shipper. Oh, it's cute, he's being like a protector, but that's not in his nature. Don't you guys kind of see like Peeta having the night terrors and Katniss right? No. Well, like in his own way, sure, but I feel like Katniss has always been the protector of Peeta.
Yeah,
I see that as well.
But counterpoint, Steph.
Oh, come at me. Come at me.
Counterpoint, Steph. Don't you think, though, that because of where the relationship was at that point, like, in her subconscious, she felt like she could let her guard down and allow herself to have those night terrors? I don't know how your subconscious works.
Maybe it shows personal growth on Katniss's part. And of course, Peeta would react that way. But I just don't think she would be the one having night terrors to begin with. And
really?
So the thing that really makes me
so much.
Also, listen. Back to the
listen.
PTSD thing. It makes you act ways you don't normally
That's
act.
true. That's very true. But I think the main reason that I don't like it is because of the movie, because this scene is so horribly awkward that it just ruins.
Steph's about to drag Josh Hutcherson.
And J-Law, because, man, she's like, will you stay with me? And he's like, yes. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't deal with it. So that's why that scene has always kind of bugged me. But I do want to say the scenes that I do really love. Whenever Peeta, like, on stage is making claims, like, he's like, I've had a crush on this girl. Oh, and the baby or whatever he's talking about.
If it wasn't
love
for the baby.
those moments. And can I just say, catching fire, Peeta,
Fire.
Fire. Catching Fire Peeta is my favorite Peeta. He's just awesome in that book.
He's best Peeta.
Yes, he is the best Peeta. But anyway, Cahlia, what are your favorite and not so favorite moments?
I mean, I really don't like the whole like reuniting and Mockingjay and then he goes for the choking. That wasn't a fun thing to read in high school. When she was like, "Oh my God, Peeta," and he was like, "Murder." I was like, no. I was like 17, and I was like, this isn't how it's supposed to happen. I don't like that.
That is definitely a big shock in the text when you read it, when you first read it.
I felt so awkward during their like encounters and Catching Fire, like before the second Hunger Games, where they were just like, hello.
Yeah.
And then they had to like pretend to be in love.
When they're just on the train traveling.
Yeah.
Just making out all the time.
Yeah, just pretend to be in love. And like whenever the Capitol would come and be like, look at them. And they'd be like, yes, it's us. I guess my shit moments. I like the moments in like the train where like in the first book where they were like talking about their favorite colors and stuff like that. Like I just thought that was really cute. And I was like 15 or did I say 15? Did I say 17? I don't know. I was vaguely high school age. Who really remembers? And I just thought that was really cute. That was one of my favorite parts of the book. I really do think the train parts though were like my favorite because it was all still like fresh and new and they were getting to know each other and there were like inklings of romance and then my favorite color was sunset orange and I just thought it was so cute.
They are cute, and when they get to know each other, I think the train is like symbolic of their like waiting for the games to happen or waiting to get home, and in that time they're finally able to step back and it's not like everything is happening around them. They can finally like step back and get to know each other, which is It's really a great
It's
thing.
unique. It's a very unique time.
I also do like the parts where Peeta just makes up a whole plot on the stage. Like, yes, those are some of the best parts.
And Katniss gets so mad, and it's like, calm down.
I feel like, especially by Catching Fire, she should have known it was going to happen going in.
Absolutely.
Like, she should have known. Like, she shouldn't have been shocked.
No,
when,
absolutely not.
He was like, if it wasn't for the baby, she should have been like, of course he pulls this one again.
She shouldn't be surprised anymore.
She'd be like, good old Peeta doing what he usually does, tearing at the heartstrings of the audience. Sad
Gotta
man.
love him. Got to love him. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Does their relationship ever develop into a full-blown romance?
I think it takes a long time, but I think it eventually does. Their relationship challenges them both to grow and develop. And to rely on each other. And it is through their obstacles that they come together, united as one entity, ready to take on their next great darkness together. The relationship is... yeah, that's very true. Their relationship is more based on the action of love and not the emotion of love. And that's... so, like, the heart feels what the heart feels, but sometimes the heart is capricious and emotions are not consistent. Whereas love as an action is unconditional. It holds relationships together. So that's why I think of they are more of the action of love. We're going to do something to show our love instead of just like words and emotions. They're going to show each other how they love each other.
Mm-hmm.
I just had to look up what capricious meant. So
Devin, the English teacher, coming in.
I think their romance does go into become a full-blown romance. Is that the question? Was that the question?
Yes, yes it was.
I think kind of going off of what Devin said, because that's what I've been doing this whole podcast. I think it's right. He's right wherein like they chose to love each other. It wasn't like one of those things where like other books where it was like, oh, it was love at first sight and everything was perfect and we lived happily ever after and we never fought.
Right.
Like it, I mean, Capitol, Pan Am, Hunger Games, hijack birds, whatever, all that stuff aside, it's a more, in my opinion, a more realistic version of love because they actively chose to love each other every day, which I think is more of a full-blown romance than the usual.
And there's
rom-coms.
definitely like huge challenges that they have to encounter. Once they make that decision to be in love with each other, they have to deal with like everything that goes along with that, and like especially Peeta with having to reaffirm what he knows and who he is as a person. once the hijacking takes over.
Yep.
So I agree. I think it's all based off of more actions instead of words.
My thing about this, I don't know if I'd call it a romance. Totally. They have moments, they have like fleeting romantic moments.
And I get that.
I would call it a really good relationship, but I don't know if in the end, if it's like, I don't know if they've had enough time to like create a real romance before he ends up losing his mind and then they have to start rebuilding it.
I understand what you're saying. And I don't know if you mean by end like that whole prologue or epilogue.
The epilogue.
Epilogue's at the end, folks.
Oh,
Cahlia,
don't even.
Cahlia is not the English teacher. So I feel like we don't really know what time has passed between like the end of the book and the epilogue. So
correct.
I feel like we can't really say definitively.
2 kids worth.
2 kids worth of time, but like
Ay.
no one is saying they were no one is saying they were jumping into kids right. Like when the last book ends, they're like what, 20 at the oldest?
Yeah.
At the oldest? Like I don't even think so, because she's like what, 16 in the first book?
She's young.
So give it like say each book is like a year. So like literally 20 at the oldest. So who knows if like the book ends and they're 20 and then the epilogue happens and they're 35. Like
yeah, that's true. And I apologize. I don't mean to be the cynical old person here. This was one of my favorite relationships when I was like reading the books. And I'm sure if I reread them, I would have my little like butterflies, like, oh my gosh. But for some reason, I rewatched the movie the other day and I was
that
just
was
like,
your first mistake.
yeah, I guess you're right. That's probably where it came from. But I was just like, so much of this is sad and them running away from like a really sad world. And it's not like them being in love.
I understand what you're getting at, Steph, but I think you also have to realize that I'm not being like, you have to realize what they've gone through because they're fictional characters. They haven't gone through anything. But I think you're right in the fact that like, yet what they're leaving sad, like they're leaving a sad world, like basically at the end of the book, everyone they love is dead.
Right.
Yes.
Or not part of their lives anymore.
Yeah, for the most part. So it is very true that their relationship, and I might be skipping to the next question, but I'll go into more depth later on. But it could be true that, again, like their relationship might have started as just like they needed each other. But again, like we don't know the time span. So that could have turned into love and romance. Which
true.
The hopeless romantic, would like to think that it did. So you can't come
I
out
agree,
here
Cahlia.
with your cynicalness.
I'll leave myself out. I will leave myself out of this question. Okay, Devin, next question.
Next question. Does Katniss have a moment where she realizes her love for Peeta? When is that moment, if so?
I can't pull out my book right now, which is actually on my bookshelf over there. I can't pull it out and like give you a specific page and shit, but I think when he has been like kidnapped or whatever, I think the second he's gone is when she starts to realize like, oh shit, like he doesn't annoy me like he
this
thought
guy.
he did. Like yeah, like I really think it was kind of in a weird twisted sense, like an absence makes the heart grow fonder type thing, because like for the first 2 books he was basically like her rock. Like, he anchored her down to, like, that more, like, regular place that I was talking about earlier where I had better words and knew how to speak earlier in the episode. So I think when he was gone, she was just like...
Yeah, I think she starts to notice her feelings are more than just fake in the second one. I think there are moments where she's like, whoa, he's kind of cool. But then, like... It's truly that she realizes it's love when like he's taken away from her. I think you're right in that. Like I think that she starts to understand, oh, I love him when she realizes that she's lost him. And she gets it's absolutely captivating to watch her on her hunt for Peeta. Like that was one of the most frustrating and one of the most like passionate things to read. And we all were like yearning for her to find Peeta along with her. But I think even in Catching Fire, there are moments where like they're on the beach or whatever and like kissing, and I feel like Katniss isn't just faking it for a few of those moments. So
for me, the moment was in Catching Fire, when Peeta is clearing the path through the forest thicket, and his machete like strikes into the force field, and he goes flying back, and his heartbeat stops and everything. It is in that moment that other tributes see Katniss's love for Peeta. And in Mockingjay, Finnick later mentions when they meet up again that
Finnick.
Finnick. Oh my god.
Isn't he great?
Jesus,
he makes a statement.
Why did you remind
Cahlia? So much better. Oh my god.
Devin, you shouldn't have done it.
I'm sorry.
You should not have done it.
I'm so upset now. I'm still mad. Oh my god, when Finnick died, I was reading the book like in the car, and I put the book down and was so tempted to roll down my window and throw it out. Sorry. Steph,
no, you're fine.
I love Finnick so much that sophomore year of college, Steph bought me a mug that said Mrs. Finnick O'Dare.
That's
I really
hilarious.
did.
I still
Annie,
have
watch
that
out.
mug. I still have that mug. It's one of my favorite mugs, right with my One Direction mug.
Devin said, Annie, watch out.
He was happy with his life. Everything was going great, and he was doing whatever it was to help her mental health. They just had a child. They were adorable. They were perfect.
Cahlia, I think you need to write a letter to Suzanne Collins. I
then
think you
she
need to
killed
grieve.
him.
I think you need to come to closure.
I'm so upset.
I'm sorry. But regardless, it was that moment that Finnick was like, yeah, I saw that there was a spark in you two. I noticed that you actually had feelings for him. It wasn't just a show for the
Finnick was like,
Yes.
these
the
two,
community.
they love.
They are. Yes, it was wonderful. But yeah, let's not open those wounds.
I'm so sorry. I wholeheartedly apologize.
No, I
just
love
have
this.
a
This
lot
is
of
great.
feelings about Finnick, and I think he deserves
As we
better.
all should.
He deserves
He
so
really
much
did.
better. Like I said, Mercutio did. Those two deserve so much
Yep.
better.
Yes,
Anyway.
they did. Two of the characters that were not done justice. But okay, this is a great question that you two are both going to have to really you're going to have to soul search to answer this. Is Katniss looking for love or survival?
Okay, soul searching done. This is like the one question I looked at and I was like, and actually thought about it beforehand. I think she's looking for both. I don't think it's a one or another with her. I think in her life and in her mind, love and survival have kind of been warped into the same thing. So for her, like going back to like when her father died and her mother went into depression, she survived because of her love for Prim, and she wanted like Prim to like leave this life. And so I think in her mind, love and survival are kind of one and the same. So I think that she loves Peeta, but she also needs him to survive. I think for her, it's the same thing.
Devin?
So both.
Yeah, so I think Katniss is created for a world of survival. Even prior to the game, she is solely focused on survival and providing for her family. So I don't think love was ever an option for her, as it wasn't her top priority. Like we talked about with Gale, like would it have developed with him? Maybe one day, but like it wasn't her priority starting off with the first novel. She closed that door off and sealed it ages ago. However, once she started opening her heart up again and being more accepting of affection and love, her mind struggles to understand the emotion in this non-familial way. She's not used to loving someone in a different regards than just Prim or her mother. And she gives into being loved and loving someone back. She lets those emotions like flood her system and be more accepting of that love. That's why I think those nightmare scenes are so important, because it's her like opening up, where usually like normally she would just close herself off. Here we see her like opening up and wanting to be with someone in her most darkest time.
I think that she wasn't looking for love, but she ended up finding it.
Yeah,
I think
which is
she
cool.
was looking for survival through Peeta, and I think she ends up finding love ultimately, because at the end when he makes it hard for her, and it's not his fault, but basically when he makes it difficult because like he's no longer himself, she still chooses to be with him, which that whole thing unsettles me, but it still shows you how much like Katniss finally understood the relationship that was fake to begin with.
And she was willing to fight for it too.
Yes. I do love that.
Moving on, how does Peeta's hijacking affect their relationship, specifically for Katniss? I know we kind of mentioned this a little bit before, but let's take a little bit of time solely for this question.
I do want to say that, like, until I was reading these questions, I think I completely just, like, wiped out the hijacking in my mind.
Yep.
And just, like, was, like, living my best fanfiction life where, like, he never... And I was like, oh, yeah, he did get, like, wholly kidnapped and wholly brainwashed. And that is something that did happen. And, I mean... Obviously, Peter.
I did it too.
obviously, Peeta was like affected because he was the victim. But I think, in like the grand scheme of things, the way it affected Katniss is that it, for the most of the book, basically, there were role reversals, because for the first 2 books, it was kind of basically like Peeta being the more affectionate one and like watching out for Katniss in a way and being more like soft and cuddly and a cutie. But then on the other hand, in the 3rd book, that's all taken away, and Katniss is the one that kind of has to be the soft one in the relationship. Not really soft, but like she's the rock now instead of where Peeta was the rock in the first 2 books. So he's like has literal like brainwashed and memory loss, and she has to pull him out of that, whereas I feel like in the other 2 books it was the other way around and he was pulling her out of that. So it's like a whole different dynamic and a whole different change that she has to learn how to get used to.
I really appreciate that analysis, because it's not what I really thought of, that it like challenges Katniss to finally be like what Peeta was for her. As far as like what I understand the hijacking to have done, it does 2 things. It awakens Katniss's feelings for him. Kind of like you said, it makes her understand that she has to step up because she loves him. Otherwise, she would have just left him because it's a crappy situation. Yeah, it's a crappy situation. But on the other hand, and you guys may disagree, him losing his mind makes it impossible for them to ever experience their original true love in the future. And that's what kills me. Now, Devin's he wants to comment, but listen.
Devin was huffing and puffing there. He was like,
I see you.
No.
And this is what kills me, okay? You guys, I don't want to admit this, but I wrote a fan fiction.
Oh my.
Nobody seek this out. But the point of me bringing that up, I love writing, but I would not have done that for any other relationship, because I was so distraught about it. Because what the hijacking did, there was no way to revert back to it, which is something I think that the truest shippers just were like, maybe she can find some way to get his old mind back, and like he'll love her again in the same way that he did, but he never will.
Yeah,
and that's something I literally cried about.
But I don't
so I'm like,
counterpoint. Here I am again with my counterpoint. And this is coming from someone who's very single. But I don't think that the fact that their love is different means that it's wrong.
No, me neither.
I think, and it sucks because it really was like, it was so, and I kind of understand where you're coming from, where it was very pure in the first books, and the hijacking kind of ruined that, and it kind of put a doubt in, like, yeah, he did get his memories back, but there was always that, is this actual memory or not, and there's that doubt and that linger.
Yes.
But if you think about it in other contexts, nobody's love, again, single, nobody's love ever stays the same. Like,
that's true.
You and Tom's love isn't the same from when you guys met when you were 15.
No, that's very true. It develops, it changes, it evolves.
And I think this is obviously a very different change. A very different change. No one has been brainwashed, I'm assuming. Steph.
Yeah. You got to ask him about that one.
But I think it's, again, an obstacle that they have to work through. And I think in a weird, twisted sense, it kind of makes their relationship stronger.
I hear you, but here's my counter.
She hears me, but she disagrees, is what she wants
Yes,
to say.
I hear you, but I disagree. Listen, here's why. You're completely right. Every relationship goes through change, and that's what makes you stronger. What the hijacking does is resets his memory, so every obstacle they've been through and they've changed together through, they cannot look forward in the future and use as an actual thing to grow from, because he can't remember it.
Right. There's no foundation for their love anymore.
That's why.
But they can.
He literally,
grow.
this poor guy. Imagine he is born into a world, and all of a sudden this girl's like, I love you. Why don't you love me? And he's like, who are you? Where am I? Like, that is not a satisfying.
Well, it's not even that. Like, he actually like comes out of that and he hates her. He sees her as the villain.
He wants to murder her.
He does.
And I'm like, I just don't even know. Okay, you guys might. And Devin, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add.
So I'll just add something I'll add something real quick.
Devin
No,
was
I do see your point. Like, their relationship will never go back to the way it was. There's no way to like retrace those steps and get those memories back. They're tainted, they're changed. But the hijacking for Peeta shows everything that sweet and kind Peeta never would have expressed. He becomes this new person, this new character for us. And he becomes like this agitated and fierce and gruesome version. And Katniss,
I hate that.
Yeah, I know. Katniss has to make that decision to like, I see he's a broken man and I'm going to try and love him and care for him and fix him along the way.
But he has like no good parts of him after the hijacking.
I know. But we do see, before it was always Peeta's control of the relationship. Now we see it as her taking control of the relationship and being like, this isn't Peeta's choice. It's not the audience's. It's not like the Capitals. It's not Snow's. It's her choice to like, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to see where this goes from there.
I also think, like, just to go off Devin and be like just super meta here, super meta. Like, we do only see what's going on from Katniss's point of view and how reliable of a narrator is Katniss. So
that's true.
We see
that's a question you have to ask with every narrator. Too.
When you sit there and you see Peeta in the first two books, like, he's a little too good to be true. Like, he has, and maybe I'm forgetting stuff obviously, but for the most part in the first two books, besides the whole Caesar Flickerman like stage debacles, like, he has no, in Katniss's eyes, he has really no flaws, because he's like, thus the boy with the bread. He's soft, he's great, he's this, that, and the other thing. And I think in the third book, like, he gets a little bit more exploration because he's hijacked. So he's raw, and all of those like parts of himself that I personally think he built up as like a shield. He kind of like, I can be nice, no one will like me, like stuff like that. Like, we're able to just see like Peeta, and I like it, because like, nobody likes perfect people. Like, he was too good. So, and it's not perfect. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say that obviously it was perfect. Like, it was like he was angry and agitated, but like like, he just got brainwashed. Like, what do you expect from him? To still be like, look, soft boy?
No, that's what I'm saying. He's raw, but he's not true. I don't think after the hijacking he's the true Peeta. That's my problem.
An altered version.
Yeah, he's not himself.
But every version in the book is an altered version, because Katniss only saw what he wanted her to see.
And that's what like that's one aspect I enjoy about the different the trilogy, the different books themselves. Like, the first one we get the first one we get the Hunger Games. The next one we get the Quarter Quell. And then the last one's almost like a mind game, where they have to navigate this whole situation and navigate their relationship through this new obstacle that we see them go through. So it's definitely interesting a take of view.
For the sake of no more debate on this, let's go to the next question. However, the next question is basically the same. So here we go. Did Peeta and Katniss get the ending you thought that they deserved?
No. I don't know what I wanted for them, but I know that this was not it. Like, I wanted I feel like I wanted them to become whole. They've been broken for so long, and I just wanted them to be healed from the pain and from the chaos of their lives, and just to be themselves. But I guess that's like just being too hopeful of thinking and fictitious for this trilogy. Like this, it wouldn't have happened. I I don't know if Collins would have been able to write a happy ending for them because of just the situation that their world is set in.
Okay, so no, but also yes.
Ooh.
No, because I agree with Devin in the fact that I could sit there just because of the type of annoying person I am. Like, I would sit there and read an entire, like, and maybe this is why I read fan fiction, but I would read, like, an entire other book between the ending of the book and the epilogue just to see them get back, like, whole again, just to see them, like, become, because there is a chunk missing. Like, there is. She skipped over however many years it was between the end and the epilogue. And that's why I say yes, because again, like, just the romantic in me who likes happy endings. Like, I do like that they got married and have kids. I think that's cute, and I say yes to that. But I feel like it was kind of just, it was too much. We weren't given enough space, like, time. We weren't given enough lead up to that point. It was like, okay, it ended. Fast forward however many years and we're happy with kids. Like, there was there was no bridge to that. And I would sit Suzanne I would sit there and
I hope you're listening.
and read an entire book just on getting from the end of the last book to that epilogue. Like, I would read that because I would want to read that closure from the two of them, because obviously, and I also might have read it wrong because hopeless romantic, but obviously to me that epilogue shows that they became whole at some point, but we just never got to see it, which I think is kind of unfair.
That's true.
Yes, me too. I have to add my piece
here.
But I wish with every fiber of my being that we could have found out what Peeta and Katniss would have been if they would have been happily ever after everything as themselves. But what I think is good about this ending is that it's more of a wake-up call. It kind of leaves a bad feeling with you after a really traumatic and scary and sad story of loss and tyranny. So I think if they would have ended up just fluffy and happy and, like, the two of them didn't, like, I think it would have had a different... Yeah, I think it would have had a different ending. Like, I think it disturbs you. Yeah, it's supposed to disturb you because we just watched so much shit go down that their relationship couldn't have gone back to normal, whether or not he was hijacked or not. Yeah. They lost all these people. It was just something that I think was necessary, but it really sucks as a shipper, you know?
And with that being said, we're going to come into our last question. Usual ending, our usual closure for our episode. Do we ship it? But we're going to change it for this one and say, as the couple would, real or not real?
Okay.
Whoa!
Deep wary sigh.
I think it's real. I'm going to say I ship it and it's real. And now you might be surprised after you just heard all this crap I've been spewing. But I really do think it's real. I don't ship their ending. I think that it should have been done better in a few different ways. But I think the two of them needed one another, and ultimately the things that they provided for each other over the course of the novels, I do ship it, and I think that they ended up together, which is where they should have ended up. I just don't think the way they should have ended up together. What do you guys think?
No, yeah, I ship it / think it's real as well, and I like totally agree with you, Steph. Like, they got to the ending destination. I just think they got on the wrong train to get there. Like, that's kind of what I think. It kind of goes back to that whole thing where it's like the ending was dissatisfying, but I genuinely think it was supposed to be dissatisfying.
Yeah, it
like,
was.
I really, like, there was no way Suzanne, because I've been calling her by her first name this whole time, because apparently we're friends now.
We're on a first name basis.
There's no way Suzanne could have written them a happy, fluffy ending that would make anyone feel good. Like, if the book ended and it was like, and then we got married and everything was great and we had, everyone would have been like, I would have actually thrown the book out of the window.
Yep.
Like, so it's real. I think it was a real relationship. I think the fact that they actively chose each other made it real, because there were so many times that they could have given up on one another. Literally, Katniss in the whole third book could have just given up on Peeta, and she didn't.
Right.
Yep.
And she didn't.
So I think real, and I ship it, and I will continue to read fan fiction about them when I am sad.
Devin, you have opinions on this?
No, I 100% agree. I think it is real, and although it is tainted or not what readers might have wanted, they got an ending, and they have to fight for each other. They have to be real with one another. They have to get through the darkness with each other, and I think that's what makes them so great.
Also, from just like a writer's standpoint, because I pretend to be a writer sometimes, as I stare at all the unfinished drafts in my computer, it's fine. Endings suck.
They really do.
Endings
no matter
suck.
what, someone's unhappy.
Endings are so hard. So I think with the history of how the book, like the history of the books beforehand and the history of Panem as a whole, I think Suzanne gave us the best ending she could. Because, like, again, like, a super, super, super gloomy ending sucks. Like, no one would have been happy. They just killed off Prim. She exploded. Like, everyone was sad. Like, Gale felt guilty and moved away.
Yeah.
So, like, but a super, super happy ending wouldn't have fit. So she went somewhere in the middle.
Yep, which we can't flaw. We can't.
So
we can't
good
call
on
her
you,
out for that.
Suzanne. You've written more books than I have. So what am I to
Suzanne,
say?
please comment back to us. Please communicate with us after this show.
Please be our friend.
Okay, Devin.
Right, and with that, it's time to announce our next episode. So hold on to your seats and get ready. And go ahead, Steph. Do it!
Okay, our next couple for next week is going to be Anakin and Padme from Star Wars.
Oh my God.
So I grew up watching Star Wars, and this couple always frustrated me. But they also had me weeping at points, although the acting was terrible. Don't get me started.
Hey, Hayden Christensen tried his best.
Yes. But so I can't wait to talk more about them next week. And if you guys have any thoughts on this couple, please feel free to reach out. Our email is weshipitpodcast@gmail.com. And you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or visit our website at weshipitpodcast.wixsite.com/weshipit.
Yes, so thank you all for listening. Thank you, Cahlia, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah, we're glad we could have you. If you liked what you heard, give us a follow wherever you listen to your podcast. And while you're at it, even consider giving us a rating. It would mean the world to us.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for listening. And thank you, Cahlia. As Devin said, it was definitely a lot of fun. And thank you for being a phenomenal guest reader for our first one. And with that, be well. And as Haymitch would say, sayonara, sweetheart.
Thank you so much, guys. Talk to you all soon.